Welcome to the Outer Hebrides and the windswept Isles of Harris and Lewis. I've been coming to these islands for well over 8 years now, and I always regarded it as being a remote location. For we are right on the western tip of mainland Europe. To the north we have nothing until we hit the Arctic Circle, and to the west there is no land until we hit the North Canadian coastline. But in time I've realised that remoteness is just a geographical description. Because how could I feel remote when I'm surrounded by the beauty that I love? Now you may have picked up that it's quite windy today. It's a bit breezy. It's just a gentle breeze by Hebridean standards. But because it is quite windy, I'm going to head off to the West Lewis coastline, the raw beauty of the rugged, spectacular coastline over there. But before I do, I just wanted to stop here and take a photograph of this fishing bothy, this fishing hut. It's a very subtle, understated location. It's an amphitheatre of hills all around us. And this bothy, it's had many different colours of roofs. I remember the days when it was bright green. I remember the day when it was grass. It was a turf roof when it was used as a location for a World War I film. But now it's been stripped back to its more natural state, which is a shame. I much prefer it as either green or grass. But hey, it's still a beautiful location, and I've just got to stop and photograph it before I head off to the coast. The great beauty of this location is there are so many different types of composition. But I'm going to start here because I want to get the separation between the roof line and the land behind by creating a slither of water in between. By doing that, it's going to create some depth to the image. And that's what I like. So I've set myself up here with my Fuji GFX 50. I'm in between lenses. I haven't quite got the lens that I want here. I've got a gap in my lenses. So I'm right up at 64mm, and the next lens I have starts at 100, so I've got a gap there, and I really ideally, preferably, want to use a focal length in between. So I'm going to have to crop this one. But I've set it up with the bridge sweeping through in front of the bothy, and then having the water on the left hand side, and just having as much water in there so as to just take it to the left hand side frame where the land is, and then going to crop it there. But what I really want to create in this image is the vast open space and the gorgeous landscape. So by starting here at this furthest point, I can capture the wild and raw open landscape. After I've taken this shot, I'm going to go much closer in and use some different compositional features that are available to me. But for now, this is my starter image. So creating the depth with the bridge in front, and then the slither of water in between the bothy and the land. It's so beautiful. It really is absolutely gorgeous. It's still windy. But I'll take you behind the camera just to show you how I've described it, and then we'll see how it processes.
In a big landscape such as this, I will quite often start by photographing from a distance before walking into the image to capture tighter compositions. This gives me the time to assess the scene and get a feel for the conditions. In this photograph, I was able to use this time to include the footbridge and the 2 wooden bars to add balance, whilst also creating depth by isolating the bothy from the distant land. I was able to do this because I was high enough to include a small slither of water above the bothy's roof. Harris Hills added further interest to the scene and helped create a beautiful photograph from one of my favourite locations on the Isle of Lewis.
So as you can see, I've come much lower down and near to the water's edge. Well, near to it, I'm at it. You can see I've lost the separation by coming this low down of the bothy and the land beyond. And you can also see I've replaced my cap. I'm Venabaloo running around here chasing my cap. So now it's officially bobble hat wind. But I'm hoping that these fence posts that you can see in the midground is creating a strong enough composition to compensate for losing the depth between and the separation between the bothy and the land. Also, there's no sunlight. The sun is there, but it's obviously behind clouds. So there is no sunlight, which could actually create some separation in the composition by lighting up the bothy, but unfortunately there is no sunlight, so I'm losing separation through the composition, and I'm also losing some separation which could be created by light. But I'm hoping in some way that is being compensated by these two fence posts and positioning the bothy central to these posts, and it's going to create a nice strong composition. I'm going to use the polarizer on this just to take some of the glare off the water, but I'm not going to use any other filters. By using a graduated filter, it will just interfere with the hill ridge line, and if I wanted to use an ND filter, well, good luck with that, because it's far too strong. The wind's far too strong to avoid camera shake. But anyway, negotiated this time. I'll take you behind the camera and show to you how I'm actually composing the photograph and how it looks through the camera.
The two wooden bars created a natural frame to place the bothy within. The lower perspective denied me of the depth from the first image, but nonetheless provided a strong composition. The water in the foreground with the Harris Hills in the distance were the support cast for this photograph. The leading role was taken by the bothy. All eyes led to the bothy. It was a shame there was no light to further enhance its position in the photograph. But its presence still created an exquisite Hebridean scene.
So I left the fishing bothy about an hour ago, and I've driven over to the west coast of Lewis, and the weather has completely changed. The wind has totally died down. It's still as cold, but it's nowhere near as windy. So the location I was going to go to, I've changed my mind, and I've come to this location here, which I wouldn't normally come to if it's really windy or if it's gusty, because where you stand or where you sit to take the photograph, you're within 2 feet of a 200-foot drop down into the ocean, and probably certain death. But because it's calm, I think it's worth a 20-minute walk along this spectacular coastline just to see what the location looks like. Welcome to PHRIS. Well, that was worth a 20-minute hike. The beautiful sea arch, PHRIS on the west coast of Lewis. Absolutely, it gets the adrenaline running in this location, always does. It's absolutely fantastic. I love photographing this. The waves are just beginning to pick up as well. I love it. Now the harsh, low winter light isn't doing me any favours at the moment because it's creating really harsh light above the ridgeline out to sea, and it's creating no light at all below the ridgeline. So I'm getting a massive dynamic range in this photograph. So I'm going to have to play around, I think, in post-processing. Now I'm going to vary the exposure. I'm going to take a couple at a fast shutter speed, maybe 1/100th of a second, just to see if I can capture the energy as the waves explode against the rocks that are just over here. But also, I may just take a slow exposure as well, just to slow the water down, and it'll create some nice sort of whirlpools. So there's quite a lot of work to do here, but there's some big waves coming in. So I'm going to take you behind the camera. I've got my Fuji GFX 50, and I've got my new lens, my 20 to 35mm lens, which means that I can get really close in. And as you can see, just in front of the camera, you've got a natural frame, which I'm going to use in the bottom of the photograph. And then beyond, about 1 foot in front of where my camera is now, is a 200-foot drop to absolute certain, well, you know what. So I'm going to get you behind the camera and show you how I'm composing this. Now, because I'm quite close to the edge here, I've got my new 20 to 35mm wide-angle zoom, which I'm trying out for the first time. I'm quite close because I want to get this frame at the bottom of the image, this natural frame being caused by the rocks here. I want to get that in focus, and I also want to get, obviously I want to get the arch in focus. Oh, look at that light there, it's lighting up. The sun is just beginning to rise a little bit. I don't think it's going to come up any higher than this, but it's just, look at the light, it's gorgeous. So yeah, so because I'm using the 20 to 35mm lens, and I'm using a focal length of 25mm, it just means I cannot get the foreground in focus and the arch in focus. So in which case I'm going to have to focus stack. So take a photograph to focus on the immediate foreground, and then take another photograph to get the arch in focus, and then I'll just have to in post-processing put those two images together. The 6-stop ND filter is giving me a shutter speed of 3 seconds, which I think is going to create some beautiful swirly water in the foreground here. Oh, I might have to break off in a minute, there's a wave coming in. I can hear it. Let's try this. It's great, isn't it? So yeah, that photograph was focused on the sea arch. So what I've got to do now is just take another photograph, focusing on the foreground, and then, as I say, just put those two together. But yeah, in the absence of any drama in terms of the light and the action from the waves, I think a slow shutter speed is the way forward. It doesn't replace the action and the explosion of the water. I don't pretend, I'd much rather it be like that. But in the absence of that, and you just got to make do with the conditions you've been given. In the absence of that, I'm going to slow it down and create some other interest in the photograph. So let's see how that process is.
With this photograph, I chose to use a wide-angle lens and a low perspective to include this natural frame in the foreground created by the rocks. This created a shape which leads the eye to the sea arch. The relatively calm conditions denied me the opportunity to capture the scene at its wildest. but a 6-stop neutral density filter allowed me to create a different scene. By slowing the action down, I was able to allow nature create its own scene for me. The slow water added contrast to the sharp, imposing rocks, which seemed to be exaggerated by the neutral density filter.
So I found another location just about 10 yards further along from where I was initially, and thankfully it's not very windy. But I'm taking the same principle as before. I'm using the rocks in the foreground as, wow. I'm going to focus on the rocks in the foreground. Wow, it's all kicking off. And then take another photograph, focusing on the sea arch, and then combine the two of those in post-process. Because I'm so close to the immediate foreground here, there's no way I can get everything front to back sharp. So it's just a case of doing a bit of work in post-processing. Every now and again these waves come in, it's brilliant. The adrenaline rush is just awesome. I wouldn't want to be up here when it's windy, I'll tell you. I know I keep on saying it, but I mean it, because I hate heights. But anyway, clinging on to dear life here. Right, it's great. Now also this shot here, you can see all the way through the arch, and then through the arch there's another rock. So that adds a little bit of sort of depth to the photograph, which is good. But yeah, I'm happy with the shots, I think. I guess you'll never know until you get home, but yeah, it's good. It's all died down now. It's amazing how it just comes and goes.
By moving just 10 yards from the previous spot, it gave me a slightly higher perspective and a slightly different view. I still wanted to include the rocks in the foreground to give the image a sense of scale, as well as providing a natural frame for the arch. The weak winter low sunshine added a subtle texture to the rocks, which was further enhanced by the soft water. The west coast on the Isle of Lewis, and STAC of PHRIS in particular, is a breathtaking location. It is a location I will never tire of visiting.
Well, that concludes my very brief journey through the Isle of Lewis this morning. I'd like to have stayed a little bit longer and captured a few more photographs, but I have to be at Stored Away ferry terminal fairly soon to pick up some guests who are arriving for my photography workshop, which starts tomorrow. But if you have enjoyed it, please consider subscribing to this brand new channel of mine. It's entirely dedicated 100% to the photography of the Scottish Highlands. Scenes such as this. Before I forget, my 2023 calendar is now available on my website, and it's 12 or 13 of my favourite images which I've captured in the Scottish Highlands over the past 12 months, and I'm incredibly proud of it. And if it is something that you may be interested in, I'll include the link in the description below. But for now, I'm going to head off to the ferry terminal, and I'm going to leave you with this beautiful view of Reef Beach. Thanks ever so much for watching, and I hope to see you again very soon. Bye for now.